in our case, we did have a sedition law. 1918 was it? You know, and I think that was an outcome of the war at the time, the First World War, which was raging. And it may have been an extension actually of the espionage law that, you know, and so essentially you couldn't say anything that was deemed disloyal or against the war efforts. And that was very much criticized, even when it was introduced during the war. And soon thereafter, 1920, it was challenged, and I think Congress abolished it. You know, am I right in that? Yeah, I mean, we have some smart guys with us. You know, they're nodding their heads. So, and so that's how we dealt with it. Libel laws are supposed to protect your privacy, and also what is not true. You know, and so there is a very specific. And so libel laws, I don't think, should be confused with sedition laws. So for example, I know that in 2012, when Malaysian government announced that it would repeal sedition laws and replace it with, I think, national harmony law. And again, I think it was very much welcomed by the international community. Certainly we welcomed it, you know. And so we were a little bit puzzled why the government announced recently that actually it would not be repealed, rather it probably should be strengthened. So what has changed between 2012 and now? So I mean, that's something I think not just us, but you know, we hope Malaysian politics, society will have a lively debate, and we are clearly paying attention to it. You know, I've had a very good fortune to also work in Malaysia issues when I was in Washington.
Right.
So I have been, a backbencher when Prime Minister Najib and President Obama met, not just once, but on several occasions.
Right, yeah.
So I can assure you that President Obama has the highest degree of respect for Prime Minister Najib and what he has done. And I do believe under the leadership of President Obama and Prime Minister Najib, we've seen tremendous improvement in our relationship, you know. So there's no question there is a degree of respect that we have, and also appreciation for his leadership that has allowed us to really improve our bilateral relationship. Now on this issue, has he regressed or has he not? I mean, that's not really for me to say. I mean, all I can say is that, you know, we are somewhat puzzled by his change in position on Sedition Act. This is something we're going to have to think about, because really, again, I mean, there will be a time lag, I'm sure, with the Parliament not being in session in March. So we look forward to a lively debate on these issues.
Are you just puzzled, or are you worried?
I think worried is something that, you know, I mean, it's really internal affair of this country. And I mean, clearly we feel that for the government to have this change of position on an issue that is as important to basic freedom, to, you know, freedom of speech, and dealing with very plural society of Malaysia, that there must be a good reason. You have to balance the needs of protecting speech, protecting expression, protecting dissent, protecting opposition against the needs of safeguarding the society. So at what point, you know, what is that line? I mean, it's a very fine line. And so I do believe that is the job of the leaders to define that line and justify that line. At what point do you assume extraordinary powers? At what point do you strengthen sedition law or other laws. And how do you justify it? On what basis do you justify it? That is clearly the job of the leader. Well, I mean, we would be, worried about hate speech and heightened, racism everywhere, and clearly that is not a good development. I myself belong to a minority group, of course, in the U.S., being an Asian American. So we have had a very, very tough history. And it's, and for outsiders, it's difficult to understand the struggle that has been going through and still going through. I mean, you've seen, even recently in Ferguson and elsewhere, this kind of struggle. But at what point do you come in? Does the government come in and to put these down? That's a tough call, and each society must have its own line, and that line has to be based on consensus with real respect for independence of the judiciary and respect for freedom of religion, with respect for freedom of dissent. And we of course we live in Malaysia. So I'm privy to seeing it much more than if I were living in America. And I would say that the kind of ingredients that go, you have a challenging system. There's no question there is a challenging system. That's why it is doubly incumbent to have an open debate and to see where the consensus is.